It's Brother Agyei Tyehimba from Harlem Liberation School. We teach black people to wake up, clean up, and stand up. So today, family, I just want to announce again that my new book, Wukusu, a self-empowerment handbook, will be available on Amazon and wherever books are sold starting tomorrow, August 9th. If you get the book between August 9th and August 16th, the book will be discounted at $13.99. If you get the book starting on August 17th forward, the book will be its regular price of $19.99. Again, copy the book Wukusu, a self-empowerment handbook from Amazon or wherever books are sold when you can. Today, I wanted to talk briefly, family. It's kind of around a lunchtime period of the need to strategize and execute. I don't know about you, but I've been to many community meetings, panel discussions. People are talking. They're talking about police brutality. They're talking about mass incarceration, privatized prison system. They're talking about miseducation in the schools and what we should do about it. Whatever the issue is, community people are out. Community folk, all classes, uh, people that are teachers, people who are blue collar workers, white collar workers, African centered people, people who are pro black but not necessarily African centered. And somebody inevitably will step up in that meeting or raise their hand or jump up and say, I'm tired of all this talking. Y'all not doing nothing. Then they'll exit the meeting, they'll get real mad, they'll say that, and usually these people will bounce. Something to the effect of all we do is talk. We need to do something. Talking is overrated. And I want to challenge that. I want to challenge that. I believe it was the fifth Pan African Conference, I believe in Manchester, England, um, called by W.E.B. Du Bois. And at that meeting, there were several, this is around World War II-ish, after World War II, and people there, Julius Nyerere, Kwame Nkrumah, Patrice Lumumba, and others, and they're there talking about the need to fight back against the European colonial powers, the need for these colonized African nations to resist their colonization and to fight for independence. Roughly 10 years later, many of the participants in that Pan-African Conference in Manchester, England, were now the new prime ministers and the new leaders of African nations, right? And they had participated successfully in the African independence movement. So this idea of meeting is not important. Strategizing is not important. Let's just go do it. Let's just be like Nike, right? Just do it. That may work in Hollywood movies. It never works in real life. In real life, the people who amass the greatest power and influence and the people who are able to take invisible thoughts and manifest them into physical things, institutions, organizations, movements, are people who sit down and think. Sit down and think. Very important. I talk to people all the time, and they seem to fail to understand that actually talking is doing something. So you say, don't just talk, do something. The two are not mutually exclusive, right? Talking. And in this sense, I don't mean just idle talk, chit chat, gossip talk. I'm talking about political talking, strategizing, the type of talking that would happen at a community organizing meeting, the type of talking that happens in Harlem Liberation School events, the type of talking that happens during leadership training workshops, the type of talking that happens during community town halls, right? This type of talking is not only necessary, but in every historical era, you see that before people engaged in large-scale political action, they had discussion and conversation. This is how people were able to surmise what the common themes were, what the problems were. This is when they were able to discuss certain type of solutions, certain types of ways of addressing issues. This is when they were able to squash internal conflicts or address them, was through discussion. I want us to look at various social movements, and I want people to notice civil rights movement, SCLC, Dr. King's organization, had discussions before they did anything. I mean, think about it. How else would you coordinate what you're going to do if you don't have political discussion? How else would you know how you're going to move if you don't have political discussion? How else would you even know uh, what the key issues are and what your tactics will be, and your strategy, your overall strategy, which is your overall roadmap, and your tactics, which are the piece by piece specific actions that are part of your strategic roadmap? How would you be able to figure that out if you don't talk? So I want people to understand there's a difference between idle chatter and gossip talk and political talk, right? I gave you an example of that Pan-African Conference in Manchester, England. Those people were talking. Pan-African conferences are talks, family. Series of talks. They have a topic. People maybe do presentations. There's questions and answers. People break up into maybe smaller groups to come up with action plans, and they report back to the larger body. But it's all talk. This is all talk. And yet, many of the participants in that Manchester Pan-African Conference in England, 10 years later, became the heads of independent African nations, because the subject of that conference was being anti-imperialist and anti-colonial. How do we fight for our freedom? How do we become independent African nations and throw the yoke of European colonialism off our backs? And this is important. At Syracuse University, where I was a student leader, our organization, the Student African American Society, represented 8 to 1,000 Black undergraduate students on campus. And we are pretty known in certain parts of the country for having led a year-long campaign to fight for the African American Studies Department, which was dilapidated. It was physically in disrepair, didn't have enough professors, therefore wasn't able to provide enough courses to fill an entire course catalog. I mean, it was terrible. The ceiling caved in, didn't have the money they needed. There's a lot of things going on. So before we even started fighting that issue, first thing we did is we asked our constituents, our members, what do you think are the biggest issues? And we gave them a framework. And we passed out, it was almost like a survey. It was a survey. A paper survey we passed out to everybody that came to those meetings. We said SAS wants to make sure that whatever we do as a body, we confront an issue that's relevant, that's important to us. So we had a number of questions. What issues are important to you? Give us three number one issues on campus that are important to you. Then we said, which of these issues are you most willing to sacrifice for? Which of these issues do you feel affects most of our people in the organization? Which of these issues are you prepared to stay up late at night organizing around, protesting for, and things of this nature? And overwhelmingly, the response from our body of members, our constituents, was do something about the African American Studies Department. We're tired of seeing it in disrepair. We're tired of seeing it look shoddy. We're tired of wanting to take classes and we can't take them because there's no professors teaching. Some people wanted to have majors and minors, wasn't enough professors. And remember, on a college campus, African American Studies, if you're Black, is a big deal. A big deal. This is where you get your political orientation, your politicized thinking, your understanding of radical movements, social political movements, Black voice and agency. This is where many people are first exposed to these things if they go to college. So on the basis of those discussions, we decided, myself and my executive board, okay, this is the issue we're going to confront. And guess what? We then had meetings with the general body that came out, our members, our constituents, the rank and file members. And then after every one of those meetings, we had executive board meetings. So myself as the president, my two VPs, and the comptroller or the treasurer, we would meet. Always meeting. Why? Why are we always having these meetings and discussions? We just like running our mouth? No. Because we needed to know what our people, our constituents wanted, what their thoughts were, what suggestions they had. We had to know how did they feel we were doing as an executive board, or do they like the direction the organization's moving in? Right? What things do they think we do well? What things do they think we need to improve? Or as the white man would say, our grows and our glows. Glows being the things you're doing well, grows the places where you need to improve. We'll do discussions. And then we as an executive board would have to meet and chop that up. This is what our constituents said. This is their feedback. Now, what do we think about it and what do we do with it? And it was because of our having very successful meetings of engaging our constituents, even going out into the larger community of Syracuse, the Black community of Syracuse, off the campus, and engaging the people who grew up in Syracuse, the citizens, the residents of Syracuse, and asking their opinion and getting them on board. That's how we eventually, the foundation of how we were able to win our campaign, and eventually force the university to concede to 13 demands. Among them were money to hire more Black professors, money to recruit more Black students, money to create a renovated community folk art gallery in the community, money for more books, money for a renovated library, and on and on and on and on. But it came through several meetings. And guess what? Sometimes we met to talk about action. So we had meetings where we said, what will our protest? What would our strategy be? What would our tactics be? And from some of those meetings, we got our tactics. Taking over certain buildings, holding rallies to inform the public on what we were doing, having press conferences to inform the larger community of Syracuse what we were doing, meeting with off campus with various community groups to get them on board with our movement and our struggle. And eventually, we were able to communicate and have these meetings and share ideas, critique ideas, so successfully that when it came time for us to drop the hammer in terms of those very, very, I would say, I don't want to say militant, but very strong protests and rallies and building takeovers and all these different things we did, the community of Syracuse had our back and was with us. Many of the faculty, the actual professors, because we've done such a good job, talking, communicating to them what we were trying to do and getting them on board, they had our back, right? It got to a point, and of course, the other students and student groups had our back. So case in point, when the university pressed false charges on me that I had beat up some security guards and damaged some school property and all this other crap to try to kick me out of school, and they had a hearing, and the hearing was almost like think of it like a real jury, like a court case, except the jury members were undergraduate student leaders, graduate student leaders, community leaders, and faculty from Syracuse University. We've done such a good job of communicating ideas, of discussing things, of building alliances. How do you build alliances? Through talking, discussion. We did such a good job of these various forms of political discussion that when that day came to have the hearing to decide when they're going to kick me out of school or not, nobody showed up to that hearing. I'm going to say it again. Nobody showed up to the hearing. What this means is that all of those, by not showing up to the hearing, those graduate student leaders, the undergraduate student leaders, faculty, community leaders, we're talking about all types of people, dozens and dozens of people. And some of them were white, some of them were Latino, some of them were Asian. Not one of them showed up. By not showing up to the hearing to determine if I would get kicked out of school or not, they were showing solidarity with my organization, the Student African American Society, and they were showing that they stood with us, but they wouldn't have been standing with us if we did not take our time to carefully articulate our message, our objectives, the issues, the critical issues at play, the main players involved in this scenario, what we wanted and how we were going to go about it. If we didn't take time, in other words, to engage in political discussion, none of that would have happened. So the next time you're talking to people, they say, oh, all y'all do is talk. Oh, nobody want to do nothing. Tell them, listen, first of all, talking is an action. When you talk, that is an action, particularly if it's political discussion, where you're raising the critical issues, you're defining critical issues, you're naming who the key players are, you're articulating what the main objectives are, you're discussing and debating strategy and tactics. That has to happen before any significant political action. You show me a movement that was successful, that did not start with people complaining, people expressing their feelings about an issue, people talking about what happened to them and why they're disgruntled, people saying what their demands were, people suggesting strategies or issues to address, or people to target or protest against. Right? That you're never going to find a movement successful without discussion first, because otherwise you're just running out and doing something without willy-nilly, haphazardly, without even really thought about, well, what are we doing this for? What do we want out of this? What are we prepared to do? When are we going to do it? How often are we going to do it? Who are the people going to get involved? Right? Who are we going to organize and ally and have alliances with? The key, though, which is why some of those people are so upset when they say, all y'all do is talk, you don't do nothing. It's the second part they're really saying. But I think they know, those people who are disgruntled in our community, they know we have to have political discussion. We have to think and articulate what we want, how we want to do it, who's going to be involved, who we're going against, what the issues are. They're really upset that so a lot of times they hear people talking, but they don't execute. So the political discussion must be combined with execution, right? Case in point, there was a school in the Bronx in New York City, public school. It had a particular principal, a white lady, whose name escapes me at the time, not even important. And students and teachers there who were black were complaining that this principal was an overt racist, that the principal had torn up some young lady's Black History Month project on Lena Horne, the famous, as you know, dancer and singer and actress. That this principal had told teachers, you are not to teach Black studies or any type of Black history. All types of complaints from parents, students, and Black teachers. So it got to Harlem Liberation School. So what we did was we investigated that. We found out that that's true. We interviewed some of the parents and some of the teachers. We had talks with some of the students, who were there with their parents. And we decided to launch a campaign to let the entire neighborhood know of New York City what this principal was doing, and saying, listen, this is New York City. I don't know who you think you are. This is a city that is multicultural by definition. There's all types of people here, and there's no way you're going to be a principal of a public school in this city talking about we can't teach Black history. You got to be out of your mind, right? So we decided you're unfit to be principal. We had her picture. We decided, we had talks. How are we going to address this? What's the critical issues here? Why is what this principal doing inappropriate and unacceptable? What is it we want? Do we want the principal fired? Do we want the principal investigated by the Board of Education? Do we want the principal to apologize publicly? Whatever. We decided we want that principal removed from the school. That's what the parents wanted. That's what the teachers wanted. And that's what the students wanted. We said, okay. So that's what we fought for. And they had brought her, the woman up on investigation. We demanded she be investigated. She had to speak before a hearing of her peers and associates. She had to meet with the parents, and she had to meet with us. And a result of all that, and of course, we're having rallies and protests in front of the school. So when people come out to school, or people going into the school, or people walking by the school, they see Harlem Liberation School, the black members of the traditional Black Panther Party, and some other people there protesting. We are holding up signs. This teacher's racist. Says we can't learn or teach Black history in the school. People stop like, "Whoa, for real? What's that about?" We getting them to sign things, the information to sign petitions, give their signature, which we presented to the school. So as a result of what? The newspaper coverage, the media exposure, as a result of us getting petitions signed and turned into this school, into that particular school district, as a result of forcing this principal to come to meetings and be held accountable, they removed her. Gone. My point here is that wouldn't have been possible if we didn't have political discussion. Who are we against here? What are we asking for? What is unacceptable? What do we want? Right? What are our tactics going to be? And then that wouldn't have been enough if we didn't actually execute all those things. So everything that we talked about politically, we eventually did, and that's why the principal got ousted out of that school. And I also worked with Black and Latino parents in the Bronx prior to that, to oust 3 or 4 principals out of schools, to have teachers removed that were inappropriate in different ways. And we got the evidence, and these are not witch hunts, family. This is evidence based. This is based on research, interviews with kids and teachers and parents, right? So my point is to say, it's through the political discussion that you set the parameters of the struggle. It's through political discussion that you find out what the community is upset about, what the community wants to see, what their grievances are. It's through political discussion that you frame what the key issues are, who the key players are, who are the people that have the power to give you what you want, or who are responsible for your grievance. Right? It's political discussion does that. And that is actually an act. So when people say, don't just talk, do something. No, what they really mean to say is, don't stop at the political discussion. Make sure you execute what you're talking about. Make sure that after the talking, we follow through with direct action, like protesting or picketing or boycotts or whatever it is you're going to do. So that's all, family. Thank you for listening. Have a beautiful day. Don't forget to purchase my book, Wukusu, a self-empowerment handbook, starting tomorrow on Amazon. Peace and Black Power. We got this. Don't let the haters distract you. Don't let the trolls get you off your path. Stay on point, family. Stay focused, and we got this. Peace. And don't vote for Trump.